Hello, my name is Michael Alfieri. I am an interviewer with the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. I am interviewing Mr. Bill Huber on September the 1st, 2006 at the Anderson Branch Library. Our camera operator today is Ann Conway. Mr. Huber, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for coming in today and sharing your story with us, and not only that, but also for serving this great country of ours. And it's a pleasure to meet you. And why don't we begin? First off, let's start by talking about what life was like for you before the war.
Well, before the war, I had worked. I was a machinist. And I worked for the King Machine Tool Company, and making boring mills and things like that. And then the war broke out, and couldn't make up my mind. And I had an uncle that worked for Jurgen's company at the time. And he said to me, Bill, he said, we going to join up or be drafted? I said, well, I'm ready to join when you are. So we went down and we joined up. We went down, we tried to get in the Marines. And my uncle was too short. And they refused him. And I said, well, we're going together. And we went right over to the Navy, and that was it.
Gotcha. So had the Marine Corps not declined you, you would have gone with the Marine Corps.
Right.
So
that was my uncle, they declined.
gotcha.
And we went to go together.
I'm showing here that yes, you did enlist in the Navy. Was there any particular reason that you decided to enlist rather than wait for the draft, or
None.
none?
We figured there's war going on. They're going to get us one way or the other. We thought we'd go right away.
Fantastic. Well, I see that you were in the Navy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your early days with the Navy?
Well, we went to Great Lakes Naval Training Station, and we put in about 6 weeks. And then one morning early, we were shipped out, and we boarded the train, and we headed for Seattle, Washington, and Bremerton. And we got up there, and we was immediately training with the Marines. And,
So you ended up with the Marines after all.
yes, we trained with them for, I would say, several days. And then we finished with them, I guess, in about 2 weeks' time. And one morning, the officers came in the barracks, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and they said, get your duffel bags, we're going.
So you had to be ready.
So we got up, and our duffel bags was laying there. We packed them, and we left, and we boarded the ship.
And this was the USS Breton?
U.S. Breton.
Okay.
And when we went in, the most of us that went up there went right into the deck force. And we had different divisions, and we were told what we were supposed to do and what we were not supposed to do. And after we got situated there for about a day or two, we got orders that it was taking off. We were sailing out. So we went down to San Diego, and in between time, we hit a terrible storm. And it was something that I don't think any of us has ever been in before, especially aboard ship.
Was it like a hurricane type storm, or
It was one where the ship would go down and the waves would
come up over
cover
the top? Okay.
Well, it would go up to the bridge anyway. And a lot of the boys were sick, seasickness. And there was a few of us that was fine. And we went down to, well, they had a place where you could buy, you get your coffee and that, but you could buy your ice cream or wherever you wanted. So the few of us that was fine, we decided to go over and have an ice cream, which we shouldn't have done. We shouldn't have put anything on our stomach while we was out like that. And I guess we sat down for about 5 or 10 minutes. All of a sudden, one of my buddies said, "I'm sick." I said, "So am I, let's go." And we headed for the sponson alongside of the ship, and boy, just let it go.
Sure.
And it was rough. I myself spent 3 days in the bunk, along with the rest of them. I mean, we were sick until we got down to San Diego. But that was the first jolt, and after that, we were fine.
Well, that's
It only took once.
Sure.
But you didn't have anything on your stomach when you got done. That's for sure. So we took on supplies in San Diego. And I guess we was there for maybe 2 days. And then we were off. We had our orders. And if I remember correctly, we went to Hawaii. And we got in Hawaii, and we got Liberty. And we kind of found out about the place and that. And there was more ships than you ever want to see in your life. Destroyers, battle wagons, cruisers, the whole works.
Now, this was post Pearl Harbor attack.
Right.
So what was the state of, were you at Pearl Harbor?
Not when it was attacked.
Okay, well, when you were there, was that where you came into?
Right.
What was the state of Pearl Harbor at that time?
Fine.
The repairs had been
Fine.
made and...
It was one of those things that some of the ships, I think it was the Missouri or the Arizona, was the one that went down first and lost, I think, 700 and some odd men. And that's the monument. I think that's the one that I think I have down there now. And we pulled in and we joined the task force, the carrier task force, which at the time, when Pearl Harbor was bombed, if the carriers had been there, we'd have been up a creek.
Sure.
The carriers were sent out to a different island, and thank God they were, because the Japs come in, they could have sailed right on to San Francisco and did their dirty work.
Did the same thing there.
And, you know, a lot of people don't realize that. It could have happened right then and there.
Right then and there. You're right.
But after we got some more supplies, we took off with the fleet. I believe it was with there was the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th fleets. And we were, I believe, if my memory's correct, we was with the 3rd fleet when we went out.
Okay.
And the carriers that are divided up in the different fleets with the battle wagons and the cruisers and everything else. And we headed out, and I think we went into Majero. It was an island in the Pacific, and we anchored, and we was only there a short time until the messages started coming through, and then we ended up joining the fleets again with the battle wagons and that, and we headed for Inuiatok, which is right on the one side of the Coral Sea.
Okay.
And we remained there for a while, and we had after you get in there, you get your orders, what you do. Now, as a radioman, I broke down many messages, and we had to decode them. But the real work was for the officers. They knew exactly where we had to go and everything, and the messages we could take up to radar and to the captain.
Gotcha.
A lot of things we didn't know just by breaking down the codes.
Okay, so they were still a bit encrypted even
Right.
after the code
Yes.
was broken,
Right.
and it wasn't, only the officers really knew
What was
What all
They had a decoding room, and they could break the rest of it down.
gotcha.
See, all that came through from Alaska, the main,
Oh, okay.
the main station.
Mhm.
And we had a job to do, and we did it. And then a lot of times you come off of decoding and you copy decode. And and like myself, I didn't go right into radio. Like I said, I was a seaman.
Sure.
And then I decided to go into radio. And they would take you and put you on one of the typewriters and the code coming in to get you used to it. But after we got in a we talk there, it was from island to island, and we went out. We knew we was in a battle. We didn't exactly know where it was. Our alarms would go off in these islands, and that meant go. That was it.
Sure.
And we just took off. And I remember one night, I had a duty in the, it was a lookout right below the bridge. And I thought, man, this is something else. We had our glasses and everything else. And all of a sudden, here comes a ship crossing our path this way, one that way, and it was the Missouri. And they came so close to the bow of the ship.
Mhm.
They knew what they were doing, but
Sure.
it was just one of those things. They had to go in and out. The carriers were located in the center
Mhm.
of the whole works. And you had your destroyers that was on the outer edges, your cruisers and your battle wagons would rotate in between your carriers to protect them.
Okay. They were there for your protection.
That's it, yeah. And they were there because of Jap subs and that.
Mhm.
The subs couldn't get in,
Sure.
and they had to rotate them back and forth. But it was a scary situation,
Sure.
as close as they came. But we ended up in several good battles and that. Like I said, half the time we didn't know where we was until
You're just at
maybe
sea
after it was
somewhere.
all over, you know.
Sure.
And I had the experience on 40 millimeter guns. I had the experience on the 50 caliber. And in fact, on the 40 millimeter, my uncle was had the front seat. He had to target the planes. I was the loader on the gun. And we did that for quite a while. But it was one of those things, we might be sitting at that gun there for overnight, maybe a couple days.
Sure.
They fed us right there,
Mhm.
you know. But it's an experience you'll never forget.
I wouldn't expect
You'll
that you would.
never forget. And like I showed you in the book here, the difference in 1 year made one heck of a difference.
Sure. Now you were talking about the battles. Did you? You said you had experience on the 40 cal and such. Did you have to deal with any of the kamikaze pilots or
Yes,
anything
and
like
our
that?
planes did too, but
Mhm.
we were lucky.
You
We were lucky.
were able to?
The CVEs, like which I was on, the Breton, they're a smaller ship.
Mhm.
Your larger ships like the Lex, the Essex, the Franklin, and the Saratoga, they carry over 5,000 men.
Okay.
And I guess our crew maybe was just about half.
Gotcha.
And there were several of those ships that went down, the Essex and the Lex and a few of the other ones. And you know that one book I showed you was different than this. I was reading that the other night, and it was telling about the Franklin that was hit, and the front deck was just blown off like that.
Just split right off.
And we towed it back to Hawaii, and when I was reading that article, it said it made its, by its own power, it went into San Francisco Bay. But we had to tow it into Hawaii.
Gotcha.
We towed that one, and we towed a cruiser that the whole bow of the ship was blowing off.
Mhm.
We towed it back to Hawaii because they had places there they could fix them up.
Get them back in
And
action.
if they could just fix them up to a certain extent, then send them back
Mhm.
to the United States.
Sure.
But I think we hit every island in the Pacific. My brother came over from Europe. He was on an LST, and I didn't know it. And I happened to go up on the bridge one morning. And I happened to look out, and I thought, oh my Lord, this ship was almost alongside of ours.
Mhm.
So I told the officer of the deck, I said, my brother's on that ship, and I'd like to go see him. And I said, I know he was over in the Atlantic. And he said, just hold on. So he got a crew, and they took me over.
Well, that's fantastic.
So I went aboard, I talked to the officer, and I told him where I was from. And he said, okay. He said, you go back through there, he said, and you'll run into him. So I went through 3 or 4 compartments, and there he was standing over in the corner, and he just turned around and looked at me as much to say, well, where did you come from? And tears just rolled down his eyes. I said, we're right alongside of you there on a carrier. So I talked to him for about 10 minutes, and the alarm went off. He said, Bill, he said, we gotta go. I said, okay, Bob. So we got up to the front of the LST, and the officer of the deck said, Bill, I don't know whether I'm gonna get you back or not. And I thought, oh my God, I said, I'm a radioman aboard that carrier, and I'm gonna have to get back. And he got a crew to take me over. So we did get back.
Did make it back.
That was the last time I seen my brother. But we didn't get into Pearl Harbor very much, very, very little. And when we did have fun.
Sure. Why don't you tell us a little bit? You know, war is an awful thing, but
War is hell.
It
in
really
plain
is.
words.
You know,
Mhm.
and but it does. From what I've been hearing, it does seem like there were some downtimes where you were able to, you know, be with your buddies, your fellow sailors, and so forth. Do you have any memories of, you know, funny things that happened, or good times that?
Oh yeah, there was about 5 of us in the radio gang that stuck pretty close together. We had the same watch. There was about 3 or 4 different watches aboard the carrier, and they had different. Down below, they had another radio room for an emergency. We were right under the flight deck.
Mhm.
And whenever we get in someplace, even in the islands, we take our own beer and whatever we wanted to eat. And I guess we'd be on the island for about maybe an hour, hour and a half.
Okay.
But we had to be careful. Some of our men, I would say the Marines, had their barracks on the islands. And sometimes the Japs would come down out of the hills and try to get in the chow line. And you would immediately know what was going on, you know.
Sure.
And they would just take them out of the chow line, and what happened to them, no one knows.
Gotcha. Just.
So it was just one of those things, but you had to be careful.
Mm-hmm. Always.
Yeah. And I ended up with malaria, just being on one of the islands.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that jungle rot. And it's where you break out and you go in swimming in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things that happen. But I come back, when I come out of service, I I had malaria twice, 108 fever,
Wow.
but I got no compensation for it
Mhm.
because I come out and that's what it was.
Gotcha.
So
Now, were you treated for that on ship, or did you go to one of the floating
I was-
hospital type ships, or?
no, I was treated aboard ship for a sickness with the fever, and they did not diagnose it.
Hmm.
It wasn't put on my record,
Gotcha.
which happens a lot of times to different things.
Sure.
And I understood that. And I didn't have any recurrence until after I got home later on.
Mhm.
And I reported it and everything. And they couldn't find no record of it. So I thought, well, just leave it as is.
Sure.
But I had it twice, and I had it real bad. I mean, I was home maybe 2 weeks in bed where you was cold, and then you was hot.
Just back and
And-
forth.
But it was my, thank God I don't have it anymore. But
I also see here that you brought a couple medals with you as well. You should tell us a little bit about that.
these here, I don't have the rest of the medals. When I come back, I was living with my mom and dad.
Mhm.
And then when I got married, I don't know, I didn't take everything with me. I think this one was from the Eagles. I think it says it on there, don't it?
Veteran of World War II.
142, the
Yes.
Eagles.
Yes, it is.
And then this one, I don't remember where that one come from anymore. It's been so long.
National Defense. It was probably from one of the islands.
Yes, I don't remember.
Beautiful.
I should have. I looked all over, but I
Sure.
don't know what happened. My mother and dad moved several times. They sold their house, got a smaller house. And where they went, I don't know, whether my brother picked them up or what.
Sure.
But like I said, with these things, I was just lucky enough to keep those.
Absolutely.
And I really enjoy, I go through the book quite a bit, you know, looking back on memories.
Absolutely.
And on different things. Now, like I told you, I write
Mhm.
in the Forest Hills Journal. And when they come out, these reporters with different stories on what's going on over there and they fabricate it, I get so mad, I write
Sure.
because I
It
don't
should-
think it's right.
Mhm.
And they always print my stuff, so,
And that was the freedom that you were fighting for.
right.
That
Well,
right there.
and then you get to it, our freedom is not free.
Free. It comes at a cost.
Right.
You originally on were saying that you initially tried to go into the Marine Corps, but the Navy took you. Looking back on it now, are you glad you ended up in the
Yes.
Navy?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Sure am, because those boys in the Marines, they took it.
Sure.
And like I said, many of them didn't even reach the shore, and they were gone, especially in the islands. And I read another article on that in the book, where there was close to 7,000 of them that never got ashore. And you figure all the boys we lost down there, plus the boys we lost in Hawaii.
Mhm.
People today don't figure nothing like that. They're raising all kinds of cane, marches and that here, because there's a few of the boys getting killed over there. That's war. Like I said, war is hell. But what would they have done if they were living at the time of World War II when so many of those boys went down?
Sure.
I mean, to see maybe 4, 5, 6, 7,000 boys shot, lay right into the water, it's a different story.
That it is.
And this is the trouble we got today with the people here. They don't realize what's going on.
Sure.
I feel sorry for the boys overseas. Thank God they're over there. Because if they wouldn't be over there, we'd have trouble over here.
Sure. We'd be fighting it here.
Right. And these people are lucky here. Sometimes I wonder about them. I have some pretty good arguments in some of the stuff.
Sure.
And sometimes I go with the book like I showed you.
Mhm.
And there's 3 articles in there. Well, these articles here. There's that one about war is hell. And that was the fun in Hawaii.
Gotcha.
We had this article they wrote about us, and I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of my buddies there, and these are the other 2 buddies.
Gotcha.
And here I shaved my beard off and had a mustache. Most of us did after a while. But that was Ewo. That was another one where they lost so many. It was just a struggle.
Sure.
And it shows all the war theaters. And I got that marked. This like map come out of I think a restaurant in San Francisco. And I took it with me and then marked all the places we were.
That you went.
So
That's great.
and there's another article they wrote.
Mm-hmm.
This was boot camp. Well, this here was my older son. He wasn't in the war or anything. He was with GE for about 15 years. And he used to take his men, the put cells, test the engines.
Gotcha.
And he was in there for quite a while. And he was one of the top 10 for when they give him tests, examinations and that.
Sure.
And he still talks about it. In fact, I talked to him the other night for about an hour on the phone.
Gotcha.
But
Well, why don't we talk about towards the end of your time in the Navy?
we happened to be, when word come through in Hawaii, we were docked. And the boys went haywire. We had several of them jump off of the ship but never come back. They drowned.
Wow.
And this was unusual, but they were just so excited, and that was the end of it.
Sure.
But then we did go out after that, and they were sort of figuring out how they were going to send the boys back, and when we would leave for the States and things like that. And we knew that our ship was supposed to head for Japan. And a lot of them was disgusted because they wanted to get home, which I could see.
Sure.
We didn't have too much liberty. Sometimes we'd be out maybe 6 months at a time.
Wow.
And the only liberty you did get was pull into an island, and you'd go over and have a beer or two and rest for about an hour, then go back up aboard ship.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either.
Sure.
And I enjoyed it, believe me. But I can see what these boys are going through over there.
Now, how did you come about your discharge? When did that happen? And
I don't know how they did it, but they went down how long you was in, and that's how they would do it, and send you off. And I think I was one of the first bunches that got off the ship, put aboard a train to come home.
Gotcha.
And they had a pretty good doings when we come home, I can tell you that.
And did you come back here to Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lived in Cincinnati all our life. We lived in north side, south of
Okay.
Cumminsville.
Mhm.
And my mother and dad had moved to Mount Airy.
Mhm.
And from that time on, I went into printing again. I had 6 years of printing, high school. And I decided to go back for a 2-year refresher course, which they pay for.
Sure. Was this through the
And-
GI Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had come out of there and I worked at a printing company. I knew the people that owned a printing company and worked for them. And that's where I met my wife. And we was there for quite a while. And then we got married. And then from there, I went into the Boilermakers, building power plants, cracking units,
Mhm.
uh, a blast furnace, stuff like that.
Sure.
And then I ended up in my own business in Anderson Township there at 8 Mile Beach Mont. For 25 years, they had a pony keg and a grocery.
Very nice.
And had 3 boys, put them all to work, along with my wife,
Mhm.
and had a guy working with me. So,
Sure.
enjoyed it. I mean, it's just one of those things.
Absolutely.
And I don't talk much about World War II.
Mhm.
I don't think most of us do.
Sure.
And I think really getting down to it, we should.
We thank you for sharing your story so that it can be preserved and so that people never do forget
Right.
exactly what happened in the early 40s and
And
through
believe
the
me.
mid 40s and the pain and the suffering and the war is hell.
It is,
That-
in plain words.
Mhm.
And that's why I wrote that one story in there, War is Hell. And I've had calls from different people. And I think the Journal did too on some of these articles I wrote, which they went along with it. And I got another one. One thing I wanted to say,
Go right ahead. If there's something you would like to say, by all means.
uh, I'd like to see a lot of these people get those videos.
And they are Saving Private Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
Tora Tora Tora, The Highest Honor, True Story, General George Patton, and it's like private video collection.
Yeah, that was on
carrier.
a carrier. It was a
Mhm.
new carrier that served in Kuwait.
Oh, okay.
Carried many thousands of men, and it was kind of a training ship. It was a nuclear, and with that video, it shows the setup is completely different for taking the planes and catapulting them off.
Mhm.
They could catapult them. They had a railing that went through the center of the ship. And they could just catapult the planes off like that. And also on each side,
Wow.
they could send off 3 planes
Mhm.
at one time.
Wow.
And
That's getting them up there.
that video is very rare. Very rare.
Gotcha.
But if people would just, I don't know if they can still buy them or not,
Sure.
try to get them.
Well, I know from your public library, pretty much Patton, Saving Private Ryan, Tora 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 are all available through us.
And I'll tell you,
So,
they're true.
Mhm.
Believe me. Whatever you see in those pictures, they are true.
gotcha.
And I can
More
verify.
more stories to be told.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot different than what you're going through today.
Yes, indeed.
A lot different.
A lot different.
Here's the thing that has never come out. It's in one of the books that I showed you.
Mm-hmm.
That was his last speech that he wrote, and he died before he could speak it.
Gotcha. Would you like me to read it, or would you like to
Sure.
read it aloud?
You can go ahead and read it.
Okay. Franklin D. Roosevelt, words written before his death from an undelivered speech. Today we are faced with the preeminent fact that if civilization is to survive, we must cultivate the science of human relationship, the ability of all peoples, of all kinds, to live together, work together in the same world at peace.
That's the truth, too.
Yes, it is.
That's
There's
the
a
truth.
lot of
Yeah.
sense in that.
This is one that I wrote.
On marches, protests, and demonstrations. And another note to our troops in Iraq.
Those are the ones I wrote because I didn't like some of the things in the papers. And I enjoy doing that.
Sure. Do you find that, you say you enjoy doing it, do you find that it helps in any way you dealing with your own experiences in war?
Yes, to a certain extent. That one I had the pictures on.
Mhm. Sure.
But I enjoy doing that.
Absolutely.
And it has helped me a lot. And I think if a lot of people, well, this generation is completely different, let's face it.
That it is.
Completely different. And I'd hate to see anything happen over here. Like they're over there fighting because Iran, Korea is coming up with these things. And getting down to it, personally, we fought the dictators in World War II. We got rid of most of them. These people are doing the same thing in Iran and Korea.
Absolutely. It's a new threat.
They kill their people. They don't give a darn about them. And we had to go over there. They're giving Bush heck. But in my opinion, we had to go. Because sooner or later, we would have had it there.
Mhm.
And we're still not out of the woods.
Japan tried to do it during World War II,
Yeah,
and
we were lucky.
we were lucky that it stopped where it did.
Figure if in World War II, if Hitler, which was working on the atomic bomb,
Mhm.
would have dropped it, where would he have dropped it?
Sure. Probably on us.
Right. And that's what the people's got to figure out, talk about with Iran and Korea. And they're still having trouble with both of those. But the trouble is now China and Russia gets oil from Iran and these other things going on that's helping them, and they don't want to be too hard on them.
Sure.
But what we're going to do about that, I don't know.
Sure. That's for our
It's,
officials to figure out.
Yep. They're going to have to figure out. And you know, I think they're going to have to send more boys over there.
It may end up having to be that way.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised they reactivate the draft. And you know, getting down to it, I've said for years, when these young men come out of high school, put them in a boot camp for 1 year to learn responsibility, how to give orders, how to take orders. It's not to send them to war. It's to give them the education, what is going on in the world.
A little bit of discipline.
And it would make one big difference in the things that are going on now.
Sure.
Because a lot of these boys, they come out, something else. And I think it would do them a heck of a lot of good myself.
Just maybe onto something there. I don't know that you're off base on that.
And a lot of them complained about using the National Guard over there now. But you get down to it, a lot of them joined the National Guard for one reason. They were getting paid for it. They
Or money
needed
for
money.
college.
And when this war come up, they were gone.
Sure.
But one thing I don't like about it, I don't like putting the women on the front lines.
Okay.
That should have never happened. Even though they were in the military there, we had women in World War II, and they were on hospital ships. They were in the different offices and that, which was fine.
Sure.
But to see them out there in war, it shouldn't have happened.
Gotcha.
Shouldn't have happened. That's really a man's job. And it's bad enough for a man, let alone a woman, you know?
Sure. Absolutely.
That's my own personal opinion.
No problem. Sure. This is your time.
Yeah.
So.
It's,
Well, I think that pretty much gets us to up to today. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to once again thank you for not only coming in, thank you for telling us your story so that it can be recorded and preserved forever. But most of all, I would like to thank you for your service to this great country. And it doesn't fall on deaf ears. And we have not forgotten what you did for us. And I thank you.
I appreciate it.